All right, everyone, welcome back to Good Vibes. I'm Martin Faust, joined, as always, by Debbie Cox DeNova, our transformation coach. And today we're going to talk about a topic that I love, how to stay motivated. Debbie, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Thank you.
I don't know. I don't know if people are born motivated or not motivated. I'm a highly motivated person.
Yes.
And when people aren't motivated, the train goes off the track.
Their train goes off the tracks.
But where do people fall generally?
In general, the trains are going off the tracks,
Okay.
especially very shortly after this time of year, because people are highly motivated at the beginning of the year. They set goals. It feels like a fresh start. And then very shortly after the new year, I have people coming to me as a coach and going, I don't want to do it. I know I'm supposed to do it, and I know this other thing that I'm doing isn't good for me, but I'm doing that instead. What can I do? And this all comes down to our relationship with the neurotransmitter dopamine, which a lot of people think is associated with pleasure, but it's really about motivation and reward. And so our relationship to dopamine has got to have a reworking, especially in our digital age. Otherwise, for a lot of us, the activities that are going to get us to the goals that we want to do are going to be avoided. And naturally so, because we're built that way.
It's the chocolate chip to the cookie, sort of like that's what the brain needs, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, in a way, exactly. So there was a study, okay? They hooked up electrodes to rats' brains, right? And they allowed the rats to pull a lever, and when they pulled the lever, they would stimulate the pleasure center of the rats' brains. Over a very short period of time, with the random stimulation of reward, the rats began to just pull the trigger over and over and over again to get the hit of reward, to the point where they weren't interested in eating, drinking, doing anything else but pulling that lever until they dropped of exhaustion. Then they flipped the study and they blocked the dopamine receptors. So the rats became completely demotivated to do literally everything: have sex, to eat, even drink. Now, if the researchers took food and put it in the rat's mouth, they would eat, but the motivation to get up and go get it wasn't there. We often think that it's just a matter of hunger or thirst when it comes to food and water, but it's actually a dopamine thing. We actually need dopamine, and to some degree, we're all dopamine addicts. Now, here's the problem. Our body tries to go into a state of homeostasis whenever we go into imbalance. And in our day and age, with the digital age, we are, a lot of us, getting too much dopamine, highs of dopamine. It's terrible for us as humans to have pleasure without pursuit. And that's available to all of us in so many different forms. So one of the ways that the body reaches homeostasis is through tolerance. So if we think about alcohol, right? Someone who drinks alcohol quite a bit has a higher tolerance for alcohol. It takes more alcohol to get them to the place that somebody who doesn't drink would go, right? That's the body's way of hitting a homeostasis. And the same thing happens with dopamine. So if you go to a casino, they know this, right? And they use the slot machines. You have every now and then an unpredictable reward that will come from this meaningless thing of pulling the slots. Euphoria. And when you actually hit, there's this flood of dopamine. They do this little ding, 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 right? And it makes you feel really good. And it also stimulates that dopamine that there's a motivation cycle, okay? So it's the action, and then you have the reward, and then the reward leads to motivation, which should lead you to action again, okay? So the people will just sit there and they'll get addicted. Even when you know that it's not good for you. Drug addicts, for example, they know that getting that next hit is not going to be good for them in the long run. It doesn't matter because they're so addicted to that high of dopamine that what happens is, because the body reaches a certain level of tolerance, things that produce low dopamine, say studying, working hard, exercising, things that would produce a low level of, they become boring. They become something that is not interesting at all. So lots of people have dopamine addiction, high dopamine addictions to different things.
Why can't you just have instead of always having a reward, just say, I did my job.
Yeah.
So I'm satisfied. I did a good job.
So that's a really good point, because those people who don't lose motivation, who have a consistent level of motivation all the time, have created a reward system about the actions themselves, right? So what we tend to do during this time of year is to set goal lists vision boards, right? So we're looking at end result things. The problem is that this takes the locus of control. So that locus of control is that experience of how much control you have over your own life, basically. And so this takes the locus of control and puts it on the external. So if I say I want to buy a new house this year, or if I want to graduate from college, or if I want to win a certain number of games if I'm an athlete, there's a lot about that that is outside of my control, right? And so what I could do then is look at the end result and then use as excuses all of these external things that I have no control over to demotivate myself to go for it. People who are good at keeping motivation long term, they actually have an internal locus of control where they understand and reward themselves for the activities along the way, and not external rewards, but internal rewards of self-talk. Like, okay, I did this. I did this. This was hard. I studied for an hour. I said I was going to study for an hour, and I did that. You have control over whether or not you study.
Right.
You may not have control over what happens in the world, for example. We don't know what's going to happen in 2023. I mean, if the 2020s have taught us anything, we have no idea. Right? So we don't know what's going to happen on the external, but we do have control over what we do. And creating a relationship, Andrew Huberman says that you need to have more reward associated with the action steps in between than actually the accomplishment. And that takes something.
I've had employees over the years that organize their organizing. And they used to go, what you doing? I'm organizing. Well, you've been organizing for 4 or 5 hours. They're organizing. Sometimes you got to throw the organizing away and just do it. Like Nike says, just do it.
Right.
Sometimes people on that same line, they think about a project, something or something they want to do so much, they talk themselves out of it.
Yeah.
They end up going full circle and going, I can't do that.
Right.
Just dive in and do it. Like I'll tell you, if you want to go pick up a guitar and learn how to play, start today.
Yes.
And why do people talk themselves out of things?
So a lot of times, and it just depends, you got to kind of check yourself on why you're organizing. Sometimes you're organizing because you need to be organized in order to get something accomplished. Other times you're using organization as an avoidance mechanism so that you don't actually have to experience potential failure at doing what you're doing. So we talk about like salespeople, right? It takes a great deal of like thick skin to go and be rejected time and time and time again to get the number of go on the number of sales calls that it takes to actually win at sales. People who have an internal locus of control will actually say, okay, I am going to go on and get in front of 100 people today and collect as many no's as I possibly can, knowing that the numbers are there. People with an external locus of control will start to make excuses about why, well, and it's a weekend, and this neighborhood's probably not a good work neighborhood for it, and no one's really interested in this. They'll actually talk themselves out of the activities that would actually get them the end result that they want. So those who focus on the locus of control, the part that they can actually control, I'm going to get in front of 100 people and do this. And do the activities, they're the ones who end up winning by default, right? Whereas those who are focused too much on the outcome and attached to like, well, what if I don't get the outcome? They actually start talking themselves out of the activities that can actually get them there. So it's really important to remember that motivation cycle starts with action. It's action and then reward and then motivation and then action again. What people do is they wait for that motivation just to hit them. And sometimes it will hit you, but most of the time it will not, right? So in order to get yourself motivated, and someone like you is always in action. Action begets more motivation. So we're always doing, you drink a cup of water and you get dopamine, right? So dopamine is being produced all the time. There's high dopamine hits and there's low dopamine hits. You have an action cycle that has you actually in motion toward end results in work. So what happens for a lot of people, and you might want to check this at home for yourself, if you are engaged in regular activities where you feel addicted to social media, for example, or video games. There's pornography. People get addicted to a lot of different things. Again, pleasure without pursuit. And so they end up like the rats, just pulling the lever over and over and over again. You'll even find yourself scrolling and go, why am I not even getting the same enjoyment out of this? And that's what happens, is that just like the tolerance we talked about, it becomes more and more and more as needed to get the same result. So you have to, it's like having the food at your favorite restaurant, like every day for a year, and like actually that becomes your baseline of norm. If I give you a bowl of rice, you're going to be like, I'm not interested in that. I'm used to this fine dining. Put you on a desert island though with no food and for a little while, and I give you that same bowl of rice. That bowl of rice becomes extremely delicious, right? And this is how the body sort of balances pain and pleasure in that way. So you need a dopamine detox. Maybe you don't, but
well, I mean, in
people do.
TV too. In the TV business, we meet new people every day.
Yeah.
So there's never Like, I guess if you're in a job where the same person you see all day, 8 hours a day, it's probably hard, but we see different people coming in here every day,
Yeah.
all have a different story.
Yeah.
That's pleasant at times because you don't get locked into the same. I can imagine if people have a radio talk show and they're doing a podcast by themselves,
Yeah.
my God, it must be boring.
Right.
We see new people every day.
So if you have a situation like that where you don't have this external stimuli that actually provides reward, it becomes even more important that you create these internal reward systems for yourself. And they don't have to be big. They actually don't. But the dopamine detox is really important first if you are somebody who finds yourself avoiding your work through these high dopamine hitting activities. Know that this is not good for you at all. So if you can spend a day at least dopamine detoxing, avoiding all the high dopamine activities, that means you put down your phone. That means you don't watch TV, you don't watch porn, you don't masturbate, you don't have sex, you don't, like, all of the high dopamine things, you don't do it for a day. You are allowed to take a walk and journal and reflect and, you know, and think about things. But what you're doing is basically healing those dopamine receptors so that when you come back, the activities that would actually bring you to where you want to go actually have more. It's like that bowl of rice. It's so delicious, right? So now, whenever you're doing, like, and start small with your actions. So make your bed. But then after you make your bed, sit for a while and tell yourself, I made my bed today, right? Start small with a glass of water. Drink a whole glass of water and then sit there and go, I just drank a glass of water. This is one glass of water toward my water goal. Or take a 5-minute walk with no phone. And then it's important right there, right afterward, to take time and go, I did that thing. Visualize also the process of doing something, like visualize yourself in the workout process instead of just the body at the end, right? And completing the process, because that will also pave the pathway through your neurotransmitters to go, okay, like, this is about to happen, and to prepare for that. And when you get it done, take that time and acknowledge yourself and go, okay, I did it.
That's some great information. And so people need to start now, though, right?
People do need to start now. Do the dopamine detox. If it seems extreme to do a full day of no high dopamine, choose the highest dopamine activity that you feel you're addicted to. And then for one day, don't do that. And then in the boredom, don't reward yourself. Like, don't do high dopamine activities to reward yourself for delaying against what you're supposed
I'm
to
going
be
to
doing.
have to take off of work.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Let yourself be bored. Feel into the boredom, because you're more than likely going to do the activities that you're supposed to do in the boredom versus if you distract yourself with social media or another high dopamine
Some people
hit.
love to drink. Some people love to do all the things you said. I love to work.
Yeah, absolutely. I do too.
That's my dopamine. All
Yes.
right. Good topic. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right, start it right now. Get going. Learn to play the guitar. Do something good. We'll see you next week.